In July 2022, a university reported a cholera case that quickly became trending news across social media platforms. This ancient infectious disease, as old as smallpox itself, possesses extraordinary transmission capabilities and devastating mortality rates, making it one of the most serious infectious diseases classified internationally. Cholera victims experience violent vomiting and diarrhea within hours of onset. The expelled fluids are massive in volume, initially yellow, but soon becoming clear like rice water. Eye sockets sink deep due to severe dehydration. Skin wrinkles and shrinks, tear ducts empty completely, and blood thickens to a tar-like consistency that clots in vessels. Muscles convulse violently due to electrolyte imbalances, sometimes even tearing. As organs fail one by one, patients fall into acute shock, resembling blue-tinged corpses. Since the 19th century, several global cholera pandemics have claimed approximately 140 million lives, equivalent to Japan's entire population. This raises critical questions. Why has cholera resurfaced? How does it kill and spread? Could it resurge in other regions? And how can we prevent and respond to it? The intestines primarily function to absorb nutrients and water, nourishing body tissues. Cholera bacteria secrete cholera enterotoxin, reversing this process entirely. Not only does this prevent normal absorption, but it actually extracts water and electrolytes from tissues. Massive amounts of fluid and waste rush out, causing severe diarrhea. Nearly half of all victims literally dry up and die from dehydration. The cholera bacteria employ a two-pronged strategy. Some cling tightly to intestinal walls, continuing to multiply and secrete toxins, while others ride out with excrement to find new hosts. These hitchhiking bacteria enter the digestive system through hands, food, and drinking water, the infamous fecal-oral transmission route. Creating a worldwide plague requires perfect timing, location, and circumstances. First, cholera transmission depends on massive population clusters where fecal-oral contact is extremely frequent. One location perfectly met these conditions. India served as the epicenter for 7 cholera pandemics. It features the sacred Ganges River, flowing with red, green, yellow, and blue foam. Indians believe drinking Ganges water can cure diseases and clean souls. Countless pilgrims annually bathe in and drink from the Ganges, making it the mother river for both the Indian people and cholera bacteria. If limited to this region alone, cholera would merely terrorize the Ganges Delta, but expansion required help from the British East India Company. Through invasion, colonization, and exploitation, the company established mature trade routes throughout India. Cholera joined this global trading organization, embarking on its path to globalization. Europeans and Americans remained unconcerned, firmly believing cholera was a disease specific to the backward East that could never appear in the civilized Western world. France, standing at medicine's pinnacle, was particularly dismissive. After all, Paris was the center of the Enlightenment. In late March 1832, cholera conquered Paris without bloodshed, killing half of all infected individuals and easily trampling medical science's highest achievements. What civilized French people found even more unacceptable was cholera's extremely uncivilized symptoms. Victims might uncontrollably discharge fluids on streetcars, in restaurants, or on busy streets in broad daylight before crowds, a social death worse than actual death. By mid-April, cholera had killed over 7,000 Parisians. To reduce panic, the government stopped publishing death statistics. Civilization's facade crumbled as capable people fled Paris, leaving a collapsed society behind while carrying cholera to new continents. New trade routes quickly spread the plague throughout coastal regions. Cholera, aided by humanity's sailing ships and steam engines, plunged deep into the American heartland. Good news: pathogens like cholera bacteria require humans to continuously ingest their own excrement for transmission. We could easily deny them transmission opportunities since not consuming feces is neither essential for survival nor emotional well-being. Bad news: medieval Europeans, while despising foul odors, didn't reject feces itself, even studying its medicinal value. In the 16th century, German monk Martin Luther daily consumed his own excrement. 18th century French court attendants would dry their feces, grind it to powder, and snort it through their noses. By the 19th century, masses of Europeans settling in New York brought these ancestral traditions. Thousands of pigs, cattle, horses, and stray cats and dogs roam New York streets, defecating freely. Pedestrians and vehicles trampled this waste, gradually compacting it into dense carpet-like layers. Continuous excrement seeped into groundwater. New York's well water was nearly semi-solid, with each citizen's daily fecal intake averaging 2 teaspoons. In summer 1832, cholera bacteria accepted New York's enthusiastic invitation, arriving at this meticulously crafted, livable new home. The Manhattan Company supplied contaminated water to every household. Some New Yorkers, unable to bear summer heat, drank raw water directly. Street vendors diluted their milk with contaminated water. Taverns, naturally, watered down their alcohol with the same source. Cholera struck twice, nearly sweeping through New York until survivors developed group immunity. Meanwhile, new immigrants and refugees continuously poured in. Between 1830 and 1860, America's urban population increased 500%. New York birthed the infamous five-point slum. Charles Dickens, who wrote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," described seeing nothing but filth, decay, and rot. In New York's slums, 200,000 people were crammed into each square mile, over 1,000 times denser than any previous human settlement in history. 17 years later, cholera returned, sweeping through New York and ultimately killing over 5,000 people. While cholera deserves blame for its terror, attributing all deaths to it alone isn't fair. The Manhattan Company contributed significantly behind the scenes. It diverted 90% of the $2 million raised for public waterworks construction to other uses. They abandoned steam engines for water pumping, switching to horsepower. They scrapped plans for a 1-million-gallon reservoir in the city, reducing capacity to 0.1% of the original plan. They abandoned rights to pump clean water from the Bronx River, instead pumping from cost-effective, feces-filled stagnant ponds. This continued for 50 years, spanning both the 1832 and 1849 cholera pandemics. Remaining funds were invested in Wall Street banks to better serve interests. Today, this company that once plunged New York into cholera crisis has a more recognizable name: J.P. Morgan Chase. Cholera's cure is almost unbelievably simple. Unlike tuberculosis bacteria that destroy lung tissue or HIV that hijacks immune cells, cholera, while deadly, actually kills through diarrhea-induced dehydration. This means simply replenishing fluids can ensure survival. Adding small amounts of electrolytes can reduce cholera's 50% mortality rate to below 1%. In 1832, an obscure British doctor named William Stevens injected salt water into over 200 cholera patients in London prisons. Fewer than 4% died, one of the most convincing proofs of this therapy's effectiveness. Unfortunately, this treatment logic violated medical orthodoxy. According to Hippocratic principles inherited from ancient Greece, diseases like cholera spread through bad air. How could authorities and classics be wrong? Medical experts continued following ancestral instructions, giving patients toxic mercury compounds that worsened diarrhea and bleeding patients that worsened dehydration, successfully raising cholera's mortality rate from 50% to 70%. Historians wrote that for 400 years, patients believed doctors were helping them, but they were wrong for at least 300 years. Another audacious doctor, John Snow, challenged miasma theory even more dramatically. As an anesthesiologist, he knew that if cholera spread through airborne gases, it should first infect the respiratory system. But actual symptoms showed cholera affected the digestive system, meaning patients must have ingested something. To prove his theory, Snow risked personal safety during the cholera outbreak, going house to house recording deaths, marking each death with a line. He created one of history's most influential data visualization maps. The map clearly showed most infected residents lived near the Broad Street water pump. Combining other evidence, Snow linked cholera deaths to London residents' water sources. He convinced Broad Street residents to remove the pump handle and abandon that water source. Cholera was finally controlled, and Snow became known as the father of epidemiology. If humanity had followed Snow's discoveries, separating excrement from drinking water sources, countless lives could have been saved. Unfortunately, Snow's discovery undermined miasma theory's basic principles. The prestigious British medical journal The Lancet commented that he had betrayed public health. The Lancet's editor angrily wrote, "Why are Dr. Snow's views so peculiar? He actually believes that swallowing animal feces only brings harm to the human body." Snow eventually died in frustration. Authority leads progress, but also creates expectations that limit scientific insight and become constraints on their era. The fifth cholera pandemic occurred in 1883. The following year, at a cholera conference in Berlin, German microbiologist Robert Koch announced discovering the microorganism causing cholera, the cholera vibrio, creating a sensation. To disprove this, cholera authority Pettenkofer, supporting miasma theory, publicly drank cholera patients' liquid waste. He claimed the liquid flowed down his throat like pure water. 27 other distinguished scientists followed suit. All 28 were struck down by cholera diarrhea, suffering severe dehydration, but possibly due to previous mild cholera infections that created antibodies. All 28 survived. Pettenkofer considered this the most powerful refutation of Koch's germ theory. As more evidence emerged, miasma theory supporters could no longer argue. In 1901, Pettenkofer shot himself. Years later, Koch won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. The bacterial theory revolution was complete, ushering humanity into modern medicine dominated by microbiology. After 1909, humanity developed filtration technology and chlorinated water disinfection. Previously mocked saline injections gradually became widespread and refined into today's oral rehydration therapy. Since 1884, humans have developed cholera prevention vaccines. 3 international oral cholera vaccines have proven 60–80% protective efficiency. Theoretically, cholera should retreat, but reality shows 3 million people globally still contract it annually, with hundreds of thousands dying. Why? Bacteria aren't static. They can exchange genes with each other and inherit genes from deceased neighbors. Combined with terrifying reproductive capacity, this creates tremendous mutation and adaptation abilities. In 1904, humans extracted a new cholera vibrio from 6 pilgrims' corpses returning from Mecca. Compared to the original classical O1 vibrio, this new strain possessed stronger environmental adaptability and antibiotic resistance, becoming the 7th pandemic source. In 1922, southeastern India discovered another new cholera, causing strain O139 cholera vibrio. This strain survived longer in water, with some variants possessing equal toxin, producing capability to predecessors while spreading much faster. Meanwhile, in many underdeveloped regions, safe drinking water, public health conditions, and population density problems remain unresolved. Mumbai's Dharavi, Asia's largest slum, houses 1.4 million people per square mile, 6 times denser than the previously mentioned horrific density. 1,400 people share one toilet, with garbage and feces flying together, rot and stench coexisting, providing dreamlike homes for cholera bacteria. We now know cholera is typically transmitted through oral, fecal routes. So washing hands before meals and after using toilets, taught since childhood, is highly effective. Cholera bacteria are extremely sensitive to high temperatures, so drinking boiled water, also taught since childhood, works. We should eat thoroughly cooked foods, but remember not to eat them too hot, as excessive heat increases esophageal cancer risk. The battle against cholera demonstrates humanity's ongoing struggle between scientific progress and institutional resistance, between public health and private profit, and between knowledge and ignorance. While we've made tremendous strides in understanding and treating this ancient plague, vigilance remains essential as bacteria continue evolving and social conditions continue creating opportunities for outbreaks. Through proper sanitation, vaccination, and rapid treatment with oral rehydration therapy, cholera need not remain the terrifying specter it once was. The key lies in applying our hard-won scientific knowledge consistently and ensuring public health infrastructure reaches all populations, regardless of economic status.